Welcome to Bite Size Dental Marketing. Today we have Jake Harry Potter. He runs our paid media team, doing his magic over there. And we have Saurya. Saurya is the head of product. And, I mean, you're getting close to be the longest tenured employee. You just got to knock Ted off. And
Yeah, as long as Ted's still here, he's always going to be ahead of me. But I'm coming in at 5 years in August.
maybe Ted can take like a leave of absence or something. And
Yeah, that way I could win.
And catch up.
yeah, you don't want to go anywhere. Interesting. Yeah. Now, Kristen's on your heels? No?
Yeah, she joined, I want to say 3 months after I joined. So we're not that far apart.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Today we're going to talk about what are we using AI for here mid-year 2024. And we've come up with some general guidelines on what we use AI for. I'll jump in. The first one, I know that we focus on, Sarah focuses on it with Shimron and the content team, Reno and the SEO team. For copy on sites, I think it's hard to come up with fun and interesting ways to talk about dental implants and veneers and other procedures, and AI helps them ideate on the content to layer onto the site. But it does seem to me, and I think this is going to be a theme when we talk about ads and social media, it's just not polished enough, and it doesn't have their tone, and I think that's the limiting factor for me when I think about AI in content. Is it's a great ideation tool, but it's not copy ready to just put onto a site. It requires some nuance and editing to it. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Jake HP?
Yeah, I mean, we do use it to help us ideate on sites, like you said. But actually, one of the biggest changes that Google rolled out, sorry, you might know the exact month, but it's slipping my mind. But there was a huge change where Google actually cracked down on ranking sites SEO based on AI-generated content. So actually nowadays, it's very important that, yes, we use AI to think about and help us create this content, but it does need to be edited by a human hand and put out there as original content. Otherwise, yeah, Google does penalize these sites.
Yeah, I do think it's more of an, like you said, Eric, it's an ideation tool because you can bounce ideas off of AI and think of more, even for content, I would say we are likely more using it to understand what our target audience might find interesting. So my target audience is parents of kids and 18 under, and they're looking for braces. What type of questions do you think they might have? And that gives us a list of ideas that we can build content on. And to Jake's point, I don't think that we can, the time and age of using what AI gives us as content and putting it on the website is gone. That is definitely not okay with Google. And I want to say since March, it was probably the March update, we have more leaned towards writing original content, but using AI to create new and creative ideas.
I use it in certainly daily. And just as we're talking about it, I need to write a difficult email and I don't know where to start. And I'll throw out some bullet points and it'll generate an email that, is 50, 70% of the way. And I feel the same just from all the things we're going to talk about, from copy on sites to focusing on intent in the Google ads and video descriptions and titles and all the little things. I think it's great for the idea generation, but even on emails to coworkers or something like that, where I want to make a point, I will use it now and again, but it's just not production ready for me, where it doesn't have my style or it uses words that I would never use. Actually, you know what I find it does? It softens points I want to make too much. Where it's like, no, I chose those words purposefully. That's what I wanted to say. And I feel like it does that in the content we write on sites too there. Now, where else are you seeing us use AI today in the agency?
I think a big one is we are using AI to tag calls. we may have talked about it on the podcast before, but we have a team that we lovingly call Call Rail Army. They manually go and listen to all the recorded calls, and these are calls coming into all of our clients' practices. So patients calling in, existing patients, new patients. We're using AI to run through the calls and tag the calls as either new patient or existing patient, and it tries to go a little layer deeper and tag it as scheduled or attempt schedule, voicemail, and so on. So we're trying to pair the effort along with the manual effort that our team is doing, and actually using the team's tags to train the AI model to now use the AI to tag calls, which we're still working on sort of how we want to utilize it moving forward, because obviously, as we know, it's not production ready, and the same goes here. I don't think that the data that we get out of the AI model is at a point where it's accurate and reliable enough for us to use for what we use it for. But definitely opens up a lot of avenues for us to explore, as in maybe we can filter the calls first round with AI and then have a human hand refine them. So that's one area that we're actively using AI, and also trying to see how more we can utilize it.
Working with Julian at Acuto, his company, has been really interesting to go down this AI journey, because the first thing he does is strip out the transcript of the call and then bounce that against IBM's Watson, and then he pulls that in and runs it against ChatGPT to gather intent, and then he builds the tags and posts it back. And that journey's been so interesting in that the first model that we programmed of the calls, we had a huge amount of confirmation bias, because we only used the new patient scheduled calls to train the AI. And then we found out that it was missing all these calls. And then we trained new patient calls that were scheduled and unscheduled. And then we had to throw in these solicitation calls. And then we had to throw in existing patient cancel calls.
And then there are the Spanish calls.
And then there are the Spanish calls that AI doesn't naturally speak Spanish. But one of the interesting journeys I've been on as we've worked with him, partnered with him on this journey, is it really is only the flaw in AI today is still, it's only as good as the information it has. And the BI stuff we used to learn in business intelligence and other, garbage in, garbage out. And with AI, it really hasn't changed the game, that you have to have a really clean data set to train it. Otherwise, you are getting out something less than ideal. And we've always had challenges with Google in intent around consumer behavior, but more specifically around Keller family dentist of Keller, family dentistry of Keller. To Google, those are all very, very close, but those are actually different offices. And it's never been particularly good at distinguishing that amount of nuance in such a niche space. And I wonder sometimes where AI goes as it relates to that, because I find it very, very valuable today, but it only takes me 50 to 70% of the way. And now I'm grateful, because I do struggle sometimes if I'm writing a short form bio for myself to go speak somewhere, or we're writing a title, or a subject or description for our podcast. I love it for the idea generation, but it still constantly sort of disappoints me in its choice of words, and it feels too clickbaity, too automated, a lot of different things.
Yeah, I would say the call listening AI has been immensely helpful for paid media. Especially we try to look at our overall portfolio KPIs, and when we perhaps need to wait on our call rail army to catch up on tagging for a certain time period for all of our clients, that can be tricky. So we need to, when we have the AI available, we can do it just like that, and it saves a lot of time and gives us real-time data. And sure, maybe it's only 70% of the way there, but for us to be able to know at least 70% of where we are, as when we look at the portfolio, it's immensely valuable.
Wonderful. Saurya, do you want to summarize, wrap up the episode here?
Sure. We briefly talked about how we're using an AI in the agency today. Majority of it seems to be an idea generation tool. We're using it for content writing, for creating ideas for content, and also we're now starting to use it to tag calls, which essentially is for data collection. So those are the two main areas where we're using AI today.
That was great. And with that alert, that was your bite of dental marketing.